Wish to welcome. Can you hear me out there? Is it working? Hello? Touch it. Thought it was directional. Anyway, welcome everybody to the regular scheduled board meeting for April the 10th, 2018. Yeah, that's, I was going to make that announcement too. This is a new system here and may have a glitch or two overnight. So hopefully we can get it squared away. If you can't hear me, raise your hand or something, because I can't tell for sure if you're working or not.
Use your outside voices, please.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
All right. Okay, I'm going to speak up a little bit in case this thing goes out again. But anyway, welcome everybody here. If you have any electronic devices, please mute them at this point. If you have to carry on a conversation with your neighbor, we ask that you step out into the lobby to do that. I don't see any of our elected officials out here. Okay, we'll go from there. Ask everybody to rise. We're going to ask Pastor Damian Johnson from City Reach Church to come in and provide the invocation.
Thank you, everyone. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this great day that you've given us, Lord God. And God, we thank you for all the many blessings you've given each and every one of us, Father God. We thank you for what your Son did for us on that cross. And Lord, we just ask you to bless this meeting tonight, God. God, your word says that we can pray for wisdom, and you'll give us wisdom, Lord God. We pray for wisdom over this agenda tonight, Lord God. We pray that you get all the glory for it. Lord, watch over us, Lord God, and help us to make this community and this town better. Let it be great for you, Father God. God, give us wisdom in everything that we do tonight, God. In Jesus' name we pray, and everybody said,
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would call this meeting to order. Mr. Jones.
We have no additions or deletions. Proud to announce.
Motion to approve the agenda with no additions or deletions.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, this is time for public comment concerning any agenda item. If you wish to speak to that, you're welcome to. At this point in time, keep in mind as these agenda items come up, we will also have public comment at that respective time. This is only for agenda items. Is there anybody wish to make a comment? Seeing none, we'll move on. Is there a motion for the approval of the consent agenda?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. All right, next up is the approval of the Waste Management EAL. I have filed the necessary form with the clerk. I will abstain from the vote due to a conflict of interest. So what's the board's wishes?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion is,
Whatever.
okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Our first item for your consideration this evening is regarding the rescheduling of the June 26, 2018 regular BCC meeting and the June 28, 2018 land use hearing before the BCC. We're requesting you reschedule these to accommodate travel to the Florida Association of Counties annual conference in Orlando. That travel will need to occur on the 26th. we would suggest that you reschedule both of those meetings to Monday, the 25th, with the regular portion of the VCC meeting to be held at 9 a.m. Here at this location, followed by the land use portion of the meeting. So both the 26th and the 28th June 2018 meetings would be rescheduled to the 25th of June to accommodate travel to the Florida Association of Counties Annual Conference.
I'm actually gonna start driving on Monday for the ethics training on Tuesday. I don't know how everyone else feels. Everyone wanna do it Monday?
I don't care.
No,
Whatever y'all pick,
we'll-
I'll do it.
Certainly, staff will do, and we can advertise whenever works.
I'm okay with Monday.
Me too.
It probably won't be a real long meeting, is it hard to guess?
It's hard to guess, but we can do our best to keep the agenda to a minimum.
What time are you leaving?
Well, I'll leave right after, because Tuesday's the ethics, and I wanted to do it in person. That's Tuesday morning. And it's about 5.5, I'm gonna go 6-hour drive,
Yeah.
so.
We will certainly do our best to keep the agenda as compact as possible. The things we can move to a later agenda time, we will.
So as I understand it, the recommendation is Monday, June the 25th, 9 a.m. here in South Walton.
Correct.
Can I ask Sid a question? Is it possible, if we had any land use items that really need to be done, can we do them first and then our regular meeting, and he'd be here for the land use?
There's no problem
Yeah.
with that.
You know, if we schedule them, let people know, hey, we're gonna do land use at 9 o'clock,
Yeah.
then because usually those are the ones that we really need 5 here.
There's no problem with that, if that's
Okay.
what the board likes.
Maybe that would work out better if we did land use first and then our regular
Regular
meeting.
board meeting.
Does that
Okay,
help
is
you?
everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Do you need a motion, council?
So moved.
Yes.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item is a request approved to draft an RFP for county health insurance that we would bring back to the board for your approval within the next couple of meetings, and at that point, ask for your permission to advertise it. Our health insurance contract will expire at the end of September, and we want to get ahead of that as we make sure we're providing the best service we can to our citizens at the best price we can. So this request is simply to draft that RFP and bring it back to you for approval and advertising at a meeting in the near future.
Okay, I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item is a request to award RFQ 018-014 for CEI services for the construction of the new Class 1 solid waste transfer station to Jones, Edmonds and Associates, and begin negotiations for that process. You gave us permission at the January 23rd BCC meeting to move forward and approve the RFQ, and we put it out for bid. Jones Edmonds was actually the only responder. However, they were the designer of the facility, and we feel very confident in their ability to perform these tasks on behalf of the county. So we would recommend approving, awarding to them, and directing staff to begin negotiations. We'll bring a contract back for your consideration at a later date.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
Yes,
carried.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment right
Yes,
here?
ma'am.
I've been getting a lot of questions, and I know we all have about recycling and why don't we recycle and that sort of thing. And I have to commend, because I have asked Billy, I don't know whether he's in here or not, but I've asked Billy to come before us and talk to us about it. But he and Lou did an article that's recently put out that I want to kudos to those two. They did an absolutely fantastic job on that article, and I wanted to thank them for it.
I read it this morning.
I'll second.
Yeah. Second kudos.
Okay, I think we're up
Let me-
to, go ahead.
Madam Commissioner, you had asked Billy to make some comments. Are you still looking for him to do that today, or are you satisfied that what was put out in the press was sufficient to cover those?
Well, the only reason I wanted them said today was so maybe people in the audience
Okay.
would hear. I certainly don't want to go through that. I mean, that was a long article, don't want
Right.
to, But, I do, hopefully the public will read that, and send it to people who you know that are concerned about recycling.
Well, I think he's here and prepared to make those comments,
Let's use
Mr.
it,
Chairman, if
please.
you would.
Mr. Billy, where he is?
He's probably hiding in the back.
Billy outside, come on in. Billy McKee.
Hang on. We may have jumped a meeting earlier. He may be planning to come to the next meeting, but let's see. If he's here,
Okay,
he can shoot from the hip. He's good.
okay, yeah, he's good at that, yeah.
Here on the south end.
Yeah, most of the Billies we know are good at shooting from the hip.
Okay.
Okay.
So I wanted to tell them what a good job they have done.
Where's he at? Parking lot? Mr. Billy.
I might have threw you under the bus, sir, but I knew you could handle it because you've been thrown under it many times before.
If you will, Billy, give us the Reader's Digest version concerning
Recycling?
recycles, yes, sir.
Okay, I just happened to have brought some information. As you know, probably there's been some concerns recently about our recycling program in Walton County. I think there was some information put out that we no longer recycle plastic, which is not accurate. We do, however, plastic's not doing well on the markets. Actually, Lou and I put together some information that I think Miss Sarah was referencing a few minutes ago. China no longer accepts plastic by and large. They've reduced how much they accept by about 70%, and they've increased the percentage, or really they've decreased the percentage of contamination that can be in the plastic, which means that they've made it almost impossible for American markets to send plastic to China. So essentially plastic's backing up from China to the U.S. Nationwide. It's piling up, and we don't have enough industry to use plastic. So hopefully the markets will improve. Plastic will start to move again. Right now we're accumulating it. We're continuing to bale it. We're accepting it, just like always, and we're just waiting to see if we can find a market to move plastic. So that's where plastic is. And otherwise, aluminum's doing pretty well. It just takes a lot of it to make any weight. Cardboard's doing pretty well. Glass is terrible. It's worse than plastic. So transporting it, finding a market for glass is just something it's not viable. But paper, I think we're going to be able to do something with mixed paper as well. So in a nutshell, that's where we are.
Okay. Any
Thank you,
questions?
Billy.
And I will say, Billy and I had a discussion maybe this morning. Some of our trailers may be mislabeled a little bit, so we're going to look at making sure we get the appropriate labels on them.
We have some very old trailers out there. They look terrible. They're faded, and we are bringing new trailers in through the grant. We get a couple here and there every year. We actually put some in the budget pretty regular. We're going to try to rotate some of those old ones out and get all of the labels consistent. Plastic, aluminum. If it will take cardboard, you can put cardboard in it. If not, we recommend that you don't. It just takes up a lot of space, and paper. No glass. And I do have 2 cardboard trailers only that I think we have one of them down on 30A, and I'm thinking about putting one out here. If y'all have any suggestions as to where to put a couple of them, I have 2 more coming. They're cardboard only. So
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Billy.
Thank you, Billy. Okay, Mr. Touce, I believe you're up.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Can everybody hear me okay with this microphone? I know we had some challenges at the last meeting that we had over here at the TDC. So a few items today on the agenda for the TDC. One is number 26, update on 331 properties in reference to the TDC Council holding a special meeting on Friday, April 13th. That's this Friday, 9 a.m. here at the South Walton Annex to evaluate and make recommendations back to the board. You know, we've been talking about this, I don't know, probably for a month or so now, about those properties. Just down the road from here, it's the plumbing supply building, the Sandcastles building, and the vacant lot that's owned by Regional Utilities in between those two businesses. And so the council will be taking that up and making a recommendation back to the board on whether to move forward with it or not. So once they do that, then I'll bring that back to the board with a recommendation, or not, if that is the case. So just wanted to give you an update on that. A few other updates on the property. We have all the appraisals back. Yes, sir.
Jay, before you go on from
Yes,
there,
sir.
when you go talk to the council concerning this,
Mhm.
I would like for you to also interject a possible another location.
Okay.
The one we talked about in my office yesterday,
Yes, sir.
and that's just to the north of this entrance coming in here, between the Eglin Tower and the entryway.
Yeah.
The old master plan shows on this side, the east side of that entrance, 8,000 square foot buildings. Or no, excuse me, one, and then one on the other side, and then we got a series of spots along the other west side of the parking lot and also south of this building. But I was mentioned to Jay to
Yeah.
kind of look at that piece of parcel right across the road. These estimates or appraisals that's come in for the two pieces of property is what, 1.7, give or take, $1 million for just the land purchase, not counting any construction costs. So I figured, well, we own the land already, why not put that 1.7 towards the construction? It's right here next to the main entrance coming in here, it's all close to it. So I ask you to present that to them also.
I will, and I spoke with Mac yesterday, and he is looking to locate those plans. I know they found the set in reference to this side of that road, so now they're looking for that side. So they're in the process of locating that. So I'll have that to bring back as well. So I will certainly bring all that back to the board once I have it all pulled together.
All right.
The next item, number 27, request to approve the 2019 TDC Event Marketing Grant Program. I've asked TDC Director of Marketing Mike Kerrigan to handle that item, and then I'll be back up for the subsequent items.
Okay. Just a reminder to anybody comes up here, identify yourself for the clerk and who you work for, or as a
Sure.
private citizen, whatever.
Sure, Mike Kerrigan, Marketing Director with the TDC, it's KERRIGAN. Good afternoon, like Jay mentioned, I'm here to present and request your approval of our 2019 Event Marketing Grant Program. In your packet is our proposed framework and plan for that program for fiscal year 2019. And just as a reference, this is the program by which local event partners can submit their events for consideration for TDC financial support. This program this year, what you have in front of you, was developed by Jay and I, meeting with every event partner that we have and every committee member that we have as well, and gathering feedback, knowing that all of our event partners have different needs. We wanted to craft a program that would best fit the needs of the majority of those events. So that's what we did. We brought that before a joint meeting of our events committee and our marketing and communications committee a couple weeks ago. It was unanimously approved there, which we were very pleased about. We bring it for your consideration today. And in a nutshell, what it is events can apply. Their applications and their plans will be scored by our events committee. Those that meet the criteria and meet the minimum score will be accepted into the program, where they will receive support in 3 distinct categories. The first one is a paid media matching grant program, where we will match, we being the TDC, match dollar for dollar what the event is willing to spend on out-of-market advertising to bring people to the event up to a certain threshold. The second category is a paid social media and digital media program, where the TDC will place media on behalf of these partners that will drive traffic back to the TDC website. So folks that are interested in these events can learn more about how to get to the area, where to stay, and what they do when they get here. The third category is a discretionary marketing expense reimbursement category. This was one that was requested by nearly all of our event partners, knowing that they all have different needs. This category builds in quite a bit of flexibility, so folks that have specific needs to their event can address those as long as they meet certain criteria, and we will reimburse up to a certain threshold for pre-approved marketing expenses. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Like I said, this was approved by our committees and the TDC as well at their last meeting, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Yes, is this the same package that someone in the North End who wanted to do a North End TDC function and see if they can get support, is this the same package that,
No, that's a separate
Okay.
program, knowing that the programs are so different and that is a separate committee that scores those. So this one is specific to South Walton events. The North Walton Event Committee hasn't met yet for that program, so we'll be bringing that back when that program's completed. So this one is specific to South
okay,
Walton.
all right, thank you.
Any other questions on the board? Is any public comment? Seeing none, what's the board's wishes? Or is this just basically an update, or do you need a motion to approve that? Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Just a little housekeeping with the next few items. We have our various advisory committees that run from the beach to marketing, and so we are bringing those committees forward to you for approval for seating the committee members and the chair and vice chairs and the council member representative to each one of those committees. So number 28, request approval of appointments for the 2018-19 TDC Beach Management Advisory Committee. You can see the chair, John Henderson, Philip Poundstone, vice chair, the TDC representative, Brian Christensen, Matt McGarrah, Matt Allen, David Vaughn, and Danny Morgliano. So those are the choices for the Beach Management Advisory Committee. This was vetted through the council. They approved the members, the committee members first, and then they came back after the committee members voted and selected their chair and vice chair. Then the council then came back and approved the chair and vice chair. So now we have both those selections, the members and the chair and vice chair, back for you for approval.
Okay. What's the board's wishes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any public comment? Bob?
Bob Brook. Bob Brook, B-R-O-O-K-E. In the attachment, the first page shows the function of the Beach Management Advisory Committee, its composition and former members, and what each position is oriented towards in terms of the representation. And if you look at the bottom of that page, my name is on there as an applicant. I would like to withdraw my name so there's no appearance of a conflict of an interest or sour grapes on my part. But I noticed that two positions were removed on the board, and I also noticed previously there were two local resident representatives. And I would like to ask the board whether they individually, if I may, Mr. Chairman, whether they feel that there ought to be some local residents that may or may not be beachfront property owners that can represent the feelings of the people who are most impacted by the tourists here as members of the board who can discuss that with other board members. May I ask that question, Mr. Chairman?
I'll ask for
Please.
you. Anybody wish to comment concerning his question?
I do. I think it's a valid request, Jay. Is there a reason they were removed, or why we don't have any beachfront or any local residents on the board?
There is. So we had 9 members of these committees, and we, in the interest of being able to have quorums, we're having challenges with quorums. So we reduced the number from 9 to 7. And so if you can kind of see the makeup here, we have representatives from, engineering outfits, beach vendors, the South Walton Turtle Watch. Then we have obviously the TDC liaison to that committee. Then we have DEP representative. So in reducing the number, we were kind of at a quandary of, okay, what do we reduce to make this work from 9 to 7? And so that's kind of how we ended up where we ended up. If the board would like me to go back and look at this again, I would certainly entertain that. But it's just been a challenge in the past for us to get a quorum at these meetings. Just case in point, last time we had our events committee, we were sitting there waiting for one last person to show up, and this is reducing it from 9 to 7. We barely had a quorum with 4. So it's a challenge.
Any other question, response, Bob's question? I think I kind of understand what he's talking about there, Bob.
No, I'm sorry. I apologize, Mr. Chairman. I don't. I think one of the most important representations that is needed is representation of the people most impacted by tourism, and I don't see that. In fact, Lisa Bushi, most of the people who were on here previously and reapplied were reinstated, but Lisa Bushi's, who was one of the local representatives who I think spoke out eloquently and fairly in response to the needs of the tourists or the people most impacted by the tourists, reapplied and was left off. So I don't understand why there's not at least one local resident who represents the concerns of the people who live here and are most impacted by the tourist influx.
Okay, well then, let's try and come up with a compromise. Go ahead.
Let me ask a question of Jay, please.
I have no further comments. My time's out.
If-
Thank you.
If we, oh, that's right, I keep forgetting the new thing. If we put another person on the board, that would be 8, which is sometimes problematic.
Correct.
So you'd have to put at least 9 on the
And
board.
that's back where we were with the quorum issue.
Can you reduce the number to have a quorum? Can they do that? Can they reduce the number to have a quorum?
That's what we did.
No, you
Well,
may.
no, I think she's saying,
Oh.
through the rules of the committee.
Through the rules of committee, can you, instead of having to have what,
I'm not sure how the TDC committees establish their rules.
yeah, that's my question. If you could reduce for a quorum, because I certainly understand people, you're setting meetings, you're letting everybody know, you've got plenty of time, and then nobody shows up, and I've been to meetings out of town that I've had to walk away from because people said they were coming and didn't. So is there some way to reduce the number of, for a quorum,
Yeah.
and you could still have,
I-
if not, then I would
I'd be
go
happy to
with
look
no
into that and bring that, I don't have the answer to that question right now, but I'd be happy to look into it and bring it back to you at the next meeting if you'd like that. We can just defer all this to the next meeting if you'd like.
And if you'd look into, would have to do 9, we just can't do 8.
Okay.
You want me to-
Look
you want me
into
to bring
it
it back to you?
and come back,
Okay,
yes.
be happy to. Okay, I do a few updates real quick. So I just wanted to update you on the TDT numbers for February. They were up 8.73% over last year. So we had a total of $264.74. So year to date, we are up 8.83 for a total of $954,430. So all in all, month just about 9%, and year to year, year over year, about 9%. So we had a good spring break. I saw some stats from the sheriff's office. I think encounters with folks on the beach, arrests were down, so that's always great news. Talking to our bed tax collectors, looks like they had good season. So happy to hear that and happy to report that.
Okay.
Real quick too, one more update, signs. I have not yet finished meeting with all the commissioners, so I'm just about to wrap that up. So I'll head that at the next meeting as well. And I think we're going to have 5 selections of signs to look at.
Okay. Jay, I
Yes,
think
sir.
items 29, 30, and 31, we need to address. Those are the other appointments. Or if you want to consolidate them all into looking at all of them. And then
Well, I
come
think
back.
whatever we do for one, we should probably do for all of them. I mean, because
That's
if we,
fine. So I guess just to have a clear record, if
Did you,
take a vote on that last.
did you have a motion?
We had a motion,
To approve.
Ms. Jones and Ms. Nipper made the motion and second to approve, but we never voted on the, beach management advisory committee.
I can pull my motion for further investigation.
So can I.
Okay, the
And I
motion's
guess-
been withdrawn.
right, and so we have a clean record, if we could just get a motion to continue items 28 through 31 to the
I'll
next
make a
meeting.
motion, we continue those items.
Got a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
okay, and then what we'll do is, if we can't do that, we'll bring back a recommendation if we want to drop one of these other categories and pick up a homeowner. I'll bring back a couple different scenarios for you
Not
in
really.
regards to that.
Number F is 2 members in business and/or residents interested in field and tourism on each one. So there's really not much to drop. It's,
Well, it'd probably be one of those. So we probably just drop one of the businesses and then put a homeowner in there.
Okay. And I hate to drop someone after we've already made public the list.
Right.
Maybe, do you ever have someone that drops off, and could we make a, could you think about putting someone on next year
Mhm.
in this category, and then if we have anybody that drops off this
We
year?
could. I can come back with a few different scenarios for the board to review and consider, and then you can kind of decide how you want to proceed.
Okay, thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing. This will be a public hearing in regards to bringing forward $4,600,000 for the solid waste fund for the new transfer station.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, who wants to?
Very simple.
Billy?
Mr. Chairman, we're simply asking that we move the 4.6 million from the solid waste reserve trust fund into the current year's budget, so that you'll see the next item is to obligate a contract for those funds. And until the funds are in place, we shouldn't obligate them. So that's why we're asking you to move these funds from the reserve into the fiscal year budget. And then Sid's first item will be to encumber those funds in a contract with Jones Edmonds.
Okay.
Or not with Jones Edmonds, with the construction company, excuse me.
Is there any public comment? Mr. Fletcher?
Bill Fletcher, Fletcher. I'm just curious how much we have in reserves and what this impact is.
Offhand, I don't know. We can get you that number.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
But these are landfill reserves, it's not
Yes,
like our
ma'am.
reserve reserves.
that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are,
Okay, anybody else? Any other public comment? Seeing none, close the public comment section.
So
I need a
moved.
motion to close the public hearing.
No, don't we have to vote in the public hearing? It's involving money.
Stealing with money.
Okay, it's dealing with money, so we'll vote. Okay.
Okay,
what's the-
motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Commissioners, the first item I had, as Larry stated, is the contract with, is it, I can't,
Yeah.
Kokalakis.
Consulting, so for the
Kokalakis.
solid waste transfer station.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Commissioners, item number 35 is a request to set a public hearing to consider an amendment to the beach activities ordinance. This would address the obstructions and signage on the beach. It would address the court ruling that we had in the Alford and Goodwin cases. I know that I have begun to get emails from members of the public about an increasing number of signs and fences or obstructions on the beach. So I would like to address this as soon as possible before we get into the summer season. What I would suggest, and then also, we had had a request from the South Walton Fire District to consider a change as far as the authorization to close the beach as well, and we could handle that at the same time because it's dealing with the same section of the ordinance. I would suggest that we set the public hearing for either mid-May, mid to late May at the latest. I would like to have this done before the summer season begins with Memorial Day. And I'll have a draft of the ordinance for your consideration at the next BCC meeting.
Sid,
Yes, sir.
the Alford case, it was more or less because especially the fence part, because it was in one ordinance instead of split off.
Correct. So the court and the challenge in the Alford case had to do with the prohibition on signs, and we had a blanket prohibition on all signs. And the court found that was problematic under the First Amendment. So, but unfortunately, with her ruling, she struck all of the language on obstructions and signs. So we need to address that. And the court did not say that we couldn't have regulations on signs. We can regulate the size of signs, the placement of them, the number. It's just the total ban was not justified.
And the fences were in.
The fences, you know, we can have a ban on fences if the board makes a determination that that's
But it was
necessary
thrown
for
out
public
because it was
safety.
tied to the sign
Correct,
ordinance.
yes,
Okay.
sir.
I think we need to do this sooner than later, for
Yes,
sure.
ma'am. I had Cynthia check some dates in mid-May, but I believe one commissioner won't be available, so I'm open to ideas. We can handle this at a regular board meeting if you'd like, it's just there's the concern that it may run a little bit long.
You think it'd go over 2 hours?
I don't think so, only based on, you know, what happened with our previous adoption of these sections, but
What
Yeah,
about
there's always
May
that
the
concern.
8th? We're down here anyway, if we started, say, at
1 o'clock?
1 o'clock.
Yeah, I'd rather do it on a day where, you know.
That we're
Okay.
down here. So how's that work for the rest of the board?
perfect.
May 8th at 1 o'clock here at South Walton Annex.
Yes, sir.
So move.
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Commissioners, item number 36 is a contract with Environmental Research and Design Incorporated, or Dr. Harper, for the 2009 Special Magistrate findings on Driftwood. I have this on here as a request to approve, but I would really prefer to have your direction at this point. Whenever I received the proposal from Dr. Harper, he basically I guess expanded the scope of his services based on what we had under the original contract. So really, I just need direction from you guys if you would like to enter into this new contract with the expanded scope of services. It's about an additional $27,000 for survey work. Or if you would like for me to talk with Dr. Harper, see if it's possible that he can complete his original scope of services, and I can bring that back to you at the next board meeting. Yes,
The
ma'am.
original scope of services was at what year? That was
2015.
So there's been a lot of changes there in Driftwood. And that's why the scope of services have got changes in.
Well, Dr. Harper, I guess, indicated that he would like to have the survey work done to complete the modeling.
The
But
current, what's currently there, as opposed to what,
Well, I think he wanted this surveying work to complete his modeling work. I'm not really sure if it's to address what's out
Was
there.
that in the original scope?
No, sir.
Was that what the?
And in fact, his original scope of service explicitly said he would not be doing survey work.
Okay.
So,
Well, first of
This is
all,
a
in
change.
my opinion, he hasn't been really, I mean, we've been waiting for this for a long time. And I don't really want to give him any more money for more work and us wait another year or so. That started in 2015. So, I mean, I have a hard time when somebody hasn't completed one job, hiring them to do something else. I mean, that's just my opinion.
but what was there in 2015 isn't what's there now. And if we're gonna get the citizens who are concerned about stormwater and drainage in Driftwood, we need to know what's there now in order for him to do his modeling. Part of the independent study, based on the special magistrate's report, was to do an independent study.
Well,
He
the question
hasn't
is
done
how
the
much
independent
is
study.
it truly an independent study? Whenever he is reaching out to the person that is suing us and putting all this out there for them to see, and the report ain't even completed. Now, you can't, we asked for an independent survey, we got it, and all of a sudden, he's come back with additional workload for whatever reason, and he's also feeding the same information that's getting the person that sued us that information so they can have an influence over Dr. Harper to get it done.
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman,
ma'am.
it's my district. I have been battling this for quite some time, and I am sorry we put it out there for Dr. Harper to do. He's the one that let us down. He's the one that didn't complete what he was supposed to do. When I look you in the face and sign a piece of paper and tell you I'm gonna do something, either I'm gonna do it or I'm gonna be dead, one of the two. And I think he needs to finish what he started, and then if we need additional work, well, then let's look at it. But I wanna see him do the job he was hired for, and I haven't seen that yet. Amen.
Okay.
And then part of the special magistrate report was to do modeling though, and you're saying that was not in his scope of work?
No, the original contract did require him to do modeling, but he explicitly stated in his scope of work under the 2015 contract that he would not be doing survey work. And so now he's come back and asked to do that survey work, and that's the discrepancy between the two scope of services.
specifically not to do the survey? In other words, he could do the modeling without surveys?
Yes, ma'am, that's what the original scope of services
That we had,
stated.
that he hasn't completed.
Correct.
I have a hard time paying somebody for something else when they haven't completed their original scope of work. That's just the way I feel about it.
What do you want
Unlike
to
Commissioner
know from
McMahon.
us?
Well, so, I guess direction, so if you, it sounds like you guys would like for me to reach out to Dr. Harper and see if he can complete the original 2015 scope of services, I can get that information and bring it back to you at the next board meeting.
I will make that motion, here against my district. I'll make that
Second.
motion.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any public comment? All right, see two hands going up. Bob, you're first. And sir, you're be the next one.
Bob Brook, just a quick question, please, Mr. Chairman. Has Dr. Harper been paid for all of the invoices he submitted on this contract so far?
All of the invoices he submitted under the contract, yes, sir, but he submitted an invoice after the contract had expired, and that has not been paid.
Okay, has he been paid for the full value of the
No.
agreed-upon value of the contract? So
No.
there's still some money
Yes, sir.
allocated for this contract that has not been paid,
Yes, sir.
that presumably will be paid when he completes the work satisfactorily.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Third row back.
My name is Jim Hobson. I'm a member of the Board of Directors for the Greater Driftwood Homeowners Association. First, I'd like to say thank you to the commissioners for the work that y'all have done in Driftwood. It's made a big improvement to the quality of life for those few members of our association that have been impacted so far, and do urge you to continue on with that work. The second thing is on Dr. Harper's report. I first appeared before this council in May of 2005 to discuss Greater Driftwood Homeowners Association problem with drainage. In 2009, we finally decided to bring on a special magistrate, which both the county and our association shared the cost of. One of the recommendations from that was that an independent study be conducted by an expert in hydraulics so he could take a look at what actually goes on within our community. Dr. Harper was hired for this. I don't know why he hasn't completed his report, but I urge y'all to carry on with Dr. Harper's report. We have a suit. We're one of the guys that are suing you.
And Mr. Hobson, just to caution you, we have a policy not to discuss litigation, so if you.
I'm not
just
going to
brief-
discuss it, just say that we're
Thank you.
ones that were involved in the suit, and we have entered in, we're trying to work out a settlement agreement. But regardless of that, I don't think the results of Dr. Harper's survey is going to be much benefit to us because we've reached the point where we are and we're ready to settle. But I think it's important for the county and for everybody in the county that you continue with Dr. Harper's report. Not only will it affect the quality of life for us in Driftwood, but it's going to affect the quality of life for everybody in the Sandestin DRI. Thank you very much. I appreciate your attention.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Fletcher.
Do we have to spell our name each time?
No, just identify yourself.
Bill Fletcher. I'm just curious, the contract that we have with Dr. Harper, did it not have a due date or a final date when
Yes,
the
sir.
report was due? And
It's
when
a-
was that date?
It was April 2016.
It's time to fire this guy.
Anyone else? Okay, what's the board's wishes?
Before we vote, Sydney, may I ask, just say again what the motion was, so I
I
know.
believe it was for me to, in 2 weeks, bring back a contract with Dr. Harper for the original scope of services. to
Have you
complete
finished the
original-
original scope of
Correct.
service?
To complete the original scope of services, yeah.
That's
And if
the
for
motion.
some reason Dr. Harper says that's not possible, I will have this agenda, I will put this back on the agenda for more direction.
Do we know if you can do the scope of services of what is in Driftwood now without survey?
Dr. Harper and I had a phone conversation last week, and he indicated that he could do the work without the surveys, but obviously he would prefer to have the survey to complete the modeling.
Any other questions? Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Fletcher, you want to know how much we had in the landfill reserve? As of right now, 5.39 million.
Is that county taking that out?
And,
Is that county taking that out?
no, that's in there. That hadn't been, that 4 point hadn't been taken out.
But we do get more every year from.
Yeah, and those funds have been anticipated,
Yeah.
we have anticipated using these funds to build this facility for the last several years, so we've allowed it to accumulate to a point where we have sufficient funds to do that.
All right, Ms. Sid, I think you got
Yes.
one more?
One more item. Oh, it's okay. It's just a request to schedule an executive session on April 24th, 2018 at 9 a.m. or immediately following the board meeting to discuss Forehand versus Preble Rish in Walton County, case number 2012 CA 750.
Okay. Have a motion,
So moved.
a motion, and got a second?
Second.
And then a second. Have executive session on April the 24th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I think Commissioner Commander, do you have anything?
Don't have nary a thing.
Okay,
Write it down, sir.
I am. Commissioner Nipper,
I do.
proceed.
It's regarding the troop preservation language. And I lost my paperwork. Anyway, oh, here it is. All right. We've been working on this for a while. We went through legislation. We can now go forward, if possible, with the land development code and adding language. This is not to stop a developer from developing. This is not to keep from developments. Right now, we do an environmental assessment on site, and I think I would like to consider is certain caliber size trees, preservation trees, 100-year trees, or of a certain caliber, that we should consider saving. That's just good for our neighborhoods, it's good for cities, it's good for health, shade, everything. And staff has told me that we could add a preservation requirement for historical, very large caliber trees, and then if a developer decides that it's in the way, there would be a fee, or in lieu of a fee, planting somewhere else. But I think it's time to put some language in the land development code that would preserve some of our very large older trees.
Commissioner, all due respect, but I'm not familiar with that document you got concerning what is being even offered to me part of this particular thing. And I would think the rest of the board would kind of like to see what being proffered there for that.
No, it's a request to come back with language. I apologize if I didn't say
Okay,
that
I
correctly.
didn't catch that part.
Okay, just come back with language.
I know that
Suggestion.
the city of Destin did a tree ordinance, and they recently reneged it, they brought it back. So I'm curious if anyone knows why, what obstacles they ran into with this ordinance, or if we could research that and see if we could learn from their mistakes, or.
I can tell you a little bit about it,
Okay.
and just, they were anxious to get an ordinance passed. I believe they brought a committee in that did some work for them, and when they were successful and they got the ordinance passed, it required them to hire an arborist that would go to review any potential tree taking down, a number of aspects of it that had some unintended circumstances. So it didn't take them long to decide to repeal that ordinance, which they have done. I believe they're in the process of rewriting an ordinance that will better fit what the concepts that they were looking to gain. And I think they have a public hearing starting maybe early next month to kind of move that process forward. There may be some value in gain in what they've learned and how they're planning on moving forward.
One of the things too is, I know Kristen has been very busy with our land development code and our comp plan. Let's get that done. This can be added. It's a code, not to the comp plan. But I would like for somebody to go down and sit in on those hearings, and let's have a clue what we're doing, so we're not going in there willy-nilly. I mean, I've seen no language so far on it. I do know that the hold-up on the comp plan and the code is pretty much driving them crazy, and they're working full-time, and
But
Chris-
we've also had a couple of meetings regarding this. From what I understand, this wouldn't be that difficult, and there's also an ordinance, or we can consider an ordinance. It's just time to consider the assets that we have, and the city of Defuniak does have an ordinance.
I understand that. I'm not opposed to an ordinance. I find it, a little bit ridiculous that you're asking for an ordinance now after you clear cut your property, put in an airstrip, which is fine. But let's do this right. There's no rush to do this right this minute. And we got next month, we can look at it. They can get a better idea. Let's do this right.
Number one, I did not clear cut my land. It was stumps.
Okay, we don't need to go there. Let's try and get it back
Didn't we
online.
have a tree ordinance at one time? Or
We,
something?
for something, you gotta have a
We had
permit
some.
down here on the south end to cut a tree, it's
I
supposed to.
thought, yeah, oh, okay, maybe that's it. I knew we had something.
I apologize then, Commissioner Nipper. You had told me that you had pushed up trees and all that when we were in Orlando, and I didn't
Okay.
hear the stump part, so I apologize for that.
Thank you.
But I just want to do this right so we don't have to do like Destin did.
Well, I don't know, Kristen, maybe if Mac is out there, which one of the two, if we ask y'all to go ahead and sit in on Destin's public hearings and see what comes, I do not think neither one of you's got the time to devote to that because the most important thing for us, I believe, is the comp and the LDC. And we can work through that, and get that basically going, and then we can come back. I mean, I don't see the urgency for putting it in place here. That's just me.
Surely, isn't there somebody in the planning department you can send down there beside yourself to take notes? Because that's basically what you're gonna do is take notes. So couldn't there be somebody you could spare to go and take notes? Bring them back to y'all, so it wouldn't take your time?
Thank you, Commissioner, for thinking about us.
I know you two.
It's, first of all, let me say, we will absolutely do our best to do whatever this board asks us to do. There's no question about that. If you'd like us to try to send somebody to these public hearings, we'll identify somebody and send them.
I would maybe say everyone, but if you get some sense of what they're looking at, or heck, get them to send us the draft. I don't mind plagiarizing.
It sounds like they're further in this process than we are, so I was thinking if we could learn from, any, glean from their mistakes or their successes in doing this, I think it would benefit us.
Certainly, that's one thing that we always try to do, rather than invent a new wheel, borrow one that's already been created, that's already been rounded off from its square start. We'll certainly do our best to glean whatever we can from the city of Destin's experience and bring that to Walton County.
Okay. What direction does the board give to them?
I think if we could just look at what Destin is doing, maybe get some ideas for them. If we have somebody to send to the hearing, fine. If not, they do put, I think they put theirs online, so we could, somebody could get and review it and just have some idea of what they're doing and then bring it back to us. So, because I think preserving some of these larger trees when possible, because they will never grow back, but,
Yes, ma'am, it does take a long time for them to grow. We will attend as appropriate and bring a report back to this body.
Okay. I think that'd be the consensus of the board.
is that good for you?
That's fine.
That's okay.
Isn't it?
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Okay, Commissioner Nipper, do you have anything else? That it?
Yes.
All right, Commissioner Jones.
I don't have anything tonight, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Chapman, no. All right, citizens' requests. First up is Ann Haig.
Hello, my name is Ann Haig, Haigh. I have lived and worked in Walton County for many years, and I'm here today asking the board to recognize Grandparent Alienation Awareness Day here in Walton County, June 14, 2018. We know one of the biggest ways to defeat this is to bring more awareness to those who know nothing or very little about alienation. With awareness comes education and understanding, and the power to stop the abuse of innocent children and the elderly left in alienation from the people they love. Laws must be changed as well to protect the rights of these alienated children and grandchildren to see all their family members, even little cousins, best friends. It's not just the grandparents, it's many more levels of relationships that are involved. I still don't know how my story will end, but nowhere in my text will it read, I ever gave up, because you see, I got it. My little man's favorite quote. I will leave a legacy of love, whether I can be there or not. And my candle's still flickering. It's been going on 4 years, but it's still going. One day it's going to be able to go off. Thanks for your consideration, and I will now read the resolution. But I do want to ask, do you all have a copy of the resolution?
We have a copy.
Okay. Whereas strong family relationships constitute the foundation of our communities, and we believe that the children and families of Florida deserve this day designated to create awareness and education for this little known and severe form of abuse. And whereas alienation behaviors are frequently present in high conflict divorces, separations, asymmetrical custody arrangements, and in intact marriages, often causing mental and emotional anguish to children. And whereas alienation is a term used to describe any number of behaviors and attitudes on the part of one or both parents designed to interfere, damage, or destroy the relationship between a child and family member. It is a form of abuse that causes emotional trauma to children. And whereas alienation takes advantage of the innocent and impressionable, as well as the suggestibility and dependency of a child, depriving children of their right to love and be loved by their extended family. And whereas mental health professionals agree that the negative effects of alienation can follow a child into adulthood with tragic consequences. And whereas the recently published Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders made several references to the dysfunctional family dynamic of alienation to be a form of psychological child abuse. And whereas Grandparent Alienation Awareness Day is intended to increase the knowledge and understanding of this problem to help families, institutions, the legal and mental health community, and leaders to better identify and combat such abusive behavior toward Florida's most vulnerable populations, the children and the elderly. Now, therefore, the Walton County Board of County Commissioners, if you approve it, does hereby recognize June 14, 2018 as Grandparent Alienation Awareness Day in Walton County, Florida.
Okay. What's the board's wishes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any public comment?
Just as a grandparent, I can't imagine what people go through that's not allowed to see their grandchildren. And I know it would absolutely devastate me, and my heart goes out to you.
Thank you. And we all understand sometimes there are reasons for parents or grandparents not to. But we're talking about the cases where it's because you cut out the green money or the in-law or the in-law's family. There's just numerous reasons.
Okay. Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all very much.
All right, next up is Paul Smith.
Do I need to spell that, sir?
Nah, I think we can figure that one out.
Well,
It's
you
like
did
John.
put an E on Smith.
Smythe? Laura, would you come with me? Where are you? We represent a small little circle in Miramar Beach called Sandy Dune Circle. And it's falling apart, and we're gonna fix it with our own money. But we're here to request that we transfer the responsibility of maintenance in the future to the Public Works Department.
Okay. I don't believe our Public Works has had the opportunity to go out there and do any assessment that
Not
the
yet.
report.
We're working with Buddy Wright.
Yeah, so.
This
maybe
is
the-
Laura Patteros. She's from Baton Rouge, and she's a retired principal. And she
Oh, my.
lives on Sandy Dune Circle.
Okay. Well, I think probably the approach right now should just direct Public Works Buddy to do your normal assessment and report back to the board concerning that.
Fine.
Okay?
Thank you.
We all bought, assuming that it had been accepted, because we saw papers that it had been presented, so, and now we find out that it never had.
We
been
thought we were a
formally-
public road, but we're private.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're willing to put in the money to resurface it, if y'all will take it on. It's a small area.
Okay. Well, Buddy's gonna look at that, and then there's a number of things they look at and find out exactly what would have to be done before the county could accept it.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next one is Peter Curry. Is that, I booger that up?
That's Peter Corey. I'm a resident of Suzanne Drive, and we too, on Suzanne Drive, residents requested the Public Works to consider.
Would you spell your last name for
I'm
us?
sorry, Corey, Koury.
Thank you.
I apologize.
That's all right.
But we've gone through the process and submitted all the information to Public Works and asked me to be present today.
It'd be the same as the previous one here,
Absolutely.
just last
Sure.
Public Works, and they'll go ahead and get started on doing their assessment and report back to us.
Thank you all so much.
All right?
Uh-huh.
David Lithenthal.
You get, close second.
I'm sorry, I missed one. Hang on a minute. Paul Kolchek? Did I booger that one too? Probably. And spell your last name for the clerk, please.
Paul Klosek, it's K-L-O-C-E-K. I'm here on behalf of the community. People like myself live on Camp Creek Lake. I'm also here on behalf of the St. Joe Company. We have been working together to solve a problem that the lake level at the last, that hurricane surge that we had back last October raised the lake level over 3 feet, invading a lot of properties, causing damage to various properties, as well as putting the health of the lake at risk. And it was in a state of this elevated lake level until February, and it only went down because of the extraordinary rain we had, over 8 inches in one day. So we spent 4 months trying to figure out how to lower the lake level, and what ultimately was found, of course, we needed a permit from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. And so what we collectively decided to do between the community and St. Joe owns the beach area where the outflow for this lake goes through, and it has for as long as the lake's been there, as far as we know. So there's nothing we could do until we got a permit to just basically get some sand out of it to drop the lake level to prevent the property damage, as well as protect the health of the lake. So we're all working together, and I'm requesting the support of the board to ask county staff to work with us in obtaining this joint coastal permit from the Florida DEP that will allow us to manage the lake level, should we have any future events that causes it to flood, basically, and put the lake and property at risk.
All right, if I understand their process, there's gonna be a survey of some sort down there. There'll be a trigger point, and then to bust it open to allow it to go out. If it doesn't do it on its own,
Right.
we gotta go down there and do it, but we gotta have the permit to do it.
Correct.
So I guess this is working with you and St. Joe to try and get DEP to give us a trigger point as to when it can be open legally and jump out.
Yes, you go through an application process, and, all the environmental factors in that are studied, and then, those levels are determined.
Melinda Gates is sitting over there.
Yes, I've been
She
working with
will,
Melinda.
you can assist him or St. Joe unless you've got some.
Yes, sir. property owners, the county wouldn't be able to be a permittee on the application, but we can definitely assist them through the process of the application just because we have the experience.
Okay.
And as this process moves forward, we will provide clarity as to, for instance, who would go open the outfall in the event the trigger point is met. We don't have an easement, we don't have right of way, so it would probably fall to St. Joe. But we'll know all that before we get to the point where we're involved in this joint permit.
Okay.
Right. Just a quick point, though. There is already 3 of these joint coastal permits that the county's involved with at Alligator Lake, Western Lake, and Eastern Lake. So it appears to be the right way to try to manage these things.
It is. Unless you go out there at midnight with a shovel.
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, they have.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, sir. Hang on, Bob. Got one right there.
Are we supposed to vote on that or just say
No,
she's
we
gonna work?
just,
Okay.
well, if we need a vote on it, we can do that.
It won't hurt.
Go ahead.
A motion to work with, Peter Corey and,
St. Joe.
St. Joe to find a trigger point, work with DEP.
Right.
Is it Paul Klochek instead of Peter Corey, though?
Yes, I'm sorry,
Yes.
I'm still one behind.
That's okay. Second.
Okay, we got a motion second. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Fred Tricker, Tricker, private citizen.
Okay, are you speaking to this topic right here?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
The question is, have you consulted with the Coastal Dune Lake Advisory Board on this issue? Are they in favor of doing this? I mean,
We haven't, as far as I know, none of us has had any conversation. This is the first that we've been made aware of this
Okay.
topic, so.
maybe, I'm suggesting it'd be a good idea to consult with them before we do anything to see what their opinion is on it.
Linda, will they be involved in that process anyway, the Coastal Dune Lake Advisory?
We can make sure that this topic goes to the Coastal Dune Lake Advisory Board prior to us actually soliciting DEP.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
let them know that the board is moving in that direction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Bob, you still want to stall?
Bob Brook. I'd like to second the previous speaker's comment on the Coastal Dune Lakes Advisory Board involvement. And thank you, commissioners, for seeing to that. I live right near Camp Creek Lake, and I cross it frequently. And I think for the first time in 12 years, I saw water over the platforms on the docks on the lake, as shown in the pictures. I don't recall it being 4 months, and I walk the beach pretty regularly, and that lake opens and closes frequently. But what I am concerned about is some of the statements in the application that was attached to this item. And as far as the land or the topography around the lake, all of the homes along that lake are at a very substantial elevation. In fact, most of them are higher than the road that goes over the bridge that the lake flows under there. And so, other than the damage, what little there may be to the docks on the lake when the lake rises, I fail to see how this endangers the foundations or any other structural portions of the homes on the lake, unless there's something way back up in the back reaches of the lake that can't be seen easily. I don't see exactly what the need for this is, to be honest with you. But I'd just like to know, and if I understood the process, there is some trigger point. Somebody makes a decision at some point that it's time to open the lake or not open the lake.
They're going to make an application with DEP. DEP will do whatever they normally do, and they'll determine the elevation in there is what time. If it doesn't breach on its own, we breach it. That's basically the process, and we don't have any control over that determination and/or permit.
I understand. Thank you. How do we find out what the criteria for setting that break point is?
Contact DEP. I don't know.
Will there be a hearings as part of this study, or how's the staff going to be involved in it? Will they keep?
It's a DEP process, and it's a permit that the DEP has to approve. They do have a process whereby you can object and send comments and those things, but it's not at the county level.
Okay, but the county staff's going to be involved in all of this?
Well, I don't know when
Or
you say
not? I
all
mean,
of
I think
this.
that's what the
County
request.
staff is going to help prepare the permits. We can't be a part of the permit or permittee because we don't own the property.
Okay,
So
is
we're
there
gonna
some
use-
process? I'm sorry, excuse me.
We will utilize the experience we've had on the other lakes to help prepare this process. I can assure you that there are criteria that DEP requires in order to get to that trigger point, and it's typically not how many docks are underwater. It's whether our homes in peril or septic tanks being impacted, those type of things. I don't know the answers to those. I don't know what levels those are, but that's what the DEP will look at when they are considering whether to approve this permit or not. Is that?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, there's a motion and a second to have staff work with St. Joe and for the joint coastal permit. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Mr. Lilienthal. I'll see you back.
I'm David Lilienthal, Lilienthal. I'm here to talk about the white sand protection. I think without the beaches of Walton County, we wouldn't have a 30A, and we certainly wouldn't have this courthouse, and a lot of things we wouldn't have. What I'm seeing right now is a developer coming in and being allowed to develop and to bring in prohibited material. It's been said that that material has been on site for years. I have worked at Watersound next to Prominence, been through all of those properties since the year 2000. I have missed maybe 30 days of work during that time. The county is also allowed, if you look up at the picture, to raise the elevation of Prominence considerably higher than the crossings. You want to go to the next one? If the property line on the south side, it's 14 feet, 15 feet, kind of an average between the two properties. The crossings on one side.
Speak into the mic.
The crossings on one side and Prominence on the other. Right now, if you go over there, it's probably about a 15-foot elevation above the crossings. The crossings is between Prominence and the Gulf of Mexico. If you want to tell me, and I've been told that the reason they've elevated that is simply because of gravity pulls things towards the road, and that's for sewer and everything else. I find it strange now that the crossings is even lower than that. Their sewer is getting to the road. What's getting to the road was it has a pump station. It doesn't have to be elevated. You've elevated above. There's a 5-foot fence there. You got to look up to see ground level. Go ahead. That's not the problem, though. The problem to me is all this stuff being brought in. They say that sand was not, it was always on site. I've been there, like I said, since the year 2000, and it hasn't. Let's look at a few more. Once again, prohibited material. Let's go to another one. More. These pictures have been taken over the last several months. Some have been taken over the last several years. That is going to wash down to our beach. Y'all make a builder come in that's doing a stem wall construction and fill that with white sand. They have to go to code enforcement and get that approved, the white sand. Then it's covered with concrete. After it's covered with concrete, a house is built. Now, if that ever gets out that sand is going anywhere, what that means is the beach is not even going to be there. But we got to put white sand in those foundations. But yet we can bring in tons and tons of dirt. Go to the next one, please. If you see the dirt, the color is obvious. It's prohibited material. It's not what is supposed to be there. We're letting the developer come in and tell us what we're going to do, which is obvious. Look at the lawsuits online. Code enforcement, and I will talk about code enforcement. Very poor job. I have a thing here that says that a code enforcement officer says while inspecting 2 dump trucks, they deposited white sand on the east side of the property. He goes on to say, I followed the dump truck when it left the property to ensure they were not bringing sand from property close by. I discontinued following the trucks when they passed through Bruce. He followed a truck to Roost to see what they might bring back in the afternoon. Give me a break. The only time I see code enforcement out there is when they're next door at Bruno's. I have another thing where Mr. Blonde, I don't remember his last name, says that there's nothing against blowing sand. He needs to read the ordinances and the regulations. I talked to Sydney, and I asked her, what are you making your judgment on? Have you ever been to, I've driven by. You can't drive by and see what I'm talking about. You can't drive by and see the elevation above the crossings, nor can you see it with its material. Let's go to the next one, please. That's a picture, I believe that one's from 2013. They're dated, I can't see it from here, but we can go, there's no piles of dirt up in the north side, none whatsoever. And by the way, that's from the county website. That's not something I did, that's from y'all's website. Let's go to the next one. There's another one, another year. Still no mounds of dirt. Still no mounds of dirt. That is a mound of dirt, and if you look at that closely over on the right-hand side, you can see the dump truck tire marks where they have actually backed that up. That was brought in as well. What they're doing is they're bringing it in after y'all did a stop order or stop work.
Wrap up your comments, please.
I'll wrap it up right now. It says that the Board of County Commissioners hereby declares that red clay and all other prohibited materials that are capable of staining the natural white sands of Walton County beaches constitutes a nuisance, irreversible harm to the people of the county. I'm asking y'all to do something about what's going on with D.R. Horton, Prominence, and what's happening to our beaches.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions? Seeing none?
I'd like Mac to explain.
Mac, if you please come in.
The picture that I just saw, is that on the south end of?
The last picture was on the north side.
North side.
The last picture was on the north side of 38.
That's correct.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Can you answer any of his concerns?
Well, a number of those concerns are not accurate. Number one, the soil that was moved from the portion of the parcel on the north side to the south side was always there. Since the stop work order has been issued, they were allowed to import material that would be encapsulated in concrete and asphalt for the road base. That has happened. There have been a number of trucks hauling material off-site that was excess. Do we believe that any material was imported from outside of this parcel that did not meet the White Sands Protection Zone or was exempt or was not exempt? No, sir, we do not. We are proposing some changes to the White Sands Protection Ordinance to make it more enforceable and to specifically address the issue where a parcel, a portion is inside and a portion is outside of the White Sands Protection Zone. But as far as balancing a site and moving material within the same parcel ID, that has always been allowed by Walton County.
So you're saying that we see a way to strengthen this so that the only sand south of the 38 is white sand other than what's going to be a road or encapsulated? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am. With some adjustments to the boundaries, Public Works has proffered some changes to the ordinance based on their experience with engineering and development of these sites. We will be bringing that information forward for your consideration probably in the next 30 days.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mac.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is public.
Excuse me, can I add something to what he was just saying or not?
There's no rebuttal, so.
There's no rebuttal to that. You can fire it off in an email to.
They don't answer.
I'm sorry?
I said they don't answer. Matt Carpenter will not answer his email.
Yes, sir, he will. He will answer your email.
That is correct. You never answered.
All right, that's enough. All right, you've got his response. We're going to move forward with the process that we're going. trying to strengthen the white sand ordinance as we go through this comp and LDC. What's going on out there, from all indications that we are aware of, they are within the code. You may disagree with it, that's your prerogative. If you want to take it the next action, a person in a black robe would probably make that decision for us. Maybe, that's up to you. That's up to you. Thank you. All right, next up is other public comments. This is any comments you want to talk about. Keep it to 3 minutes and move forward. Mr. Fletcher, Lee, you'll be next.
Bill Fletcher, I don't
Bob?
need 3 minutes, Mr. Chairman. The discussion about Dr. Harper's contract got me to think about the matrix study for our comp plan and LDC. Is there a deadline or a due date on that? I think that's like 2 years old at least, isn't it?
I think somewhere around first part of June, is that correct?
Sure, but,
I think that's what they're shooting for.
I can get you a copy of the contract, Mr. Fletcher. I'll send you it
Thank you.
tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
In the break, see me, okay.
Okay.
Ms. Moore?
Thank you, Commissioners. Lee Moore, M-O-O-R-E. And I just wanted to go back. I was trying to get your attention when it was happening, but the discussion about the tree protection or preservation ordinance, I just wanted to suggest there are many tree ordinances in place all over the state of Florida and all over the United States, and I'm sure all over the world, so that are effective and successful. So I don't know how long the Destin process is going to take. They've already been working on this for well over a year. And what someone said about these trees taking a really long time to ever grow back, if someone does plant trees in their place, which is always a big question, is true. So if we spend months and months or a year or more, a lot of trees, older, bigger trees could come down, and a lot already have. So I just urge you to expedite the process however you can. And if the Destin process looks like it's going to drag out, I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket. And I just think this is so critically important. Commissioner Nipper is right. These trees are, I just give a quick anecdote. I read an article just today that there's one state agency that is doing any program about climate change. I know that's a controversial subject, but I think it's becoming pretty clear that it's having severe effects around the world in this country, and especially Florida. We're right in the bullseye for the impacts of that, and that is a TDC, CDC program, and they do $1 million in grants per year in Florida for climate change related issues. And one of the things that they issue grants for is to purchase and plant trees. So there is actually evidence and study that trees help us to fight climate change. That's pretty big. And there's a whole long list of the benefits of trees otherwise. So I just urge you to move forward with that as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob?
Bob Brook. Mr. Chairman, I apologize for not bringing this up earlier when it was on the agenda. I think it was part of the consent agenda, and I just realized I don't understand exactly how to address items in the consent agenda, so if you would please bear with me. Items 7, 8, and 9 were requests for approvals for grant writing contracts with 3 different organizations, and I was just curious, can you tell me how much is in the 2018 budget for grant writing and consulting support relative to grant writing?
Mr. Williams? The monies for these grants or paying for them to go look for the grants is coming out of that.
Understand. It comes out of the
Did I
grants.
misunderstand your question then?
Do we budget to contract with these people for grant writing support? And how much do we budget?
I can give it a shot. Probably not. And having said that, we're not committing any dollars to any of these firms. We're simply putting them in place in a queue that as we move forward, particularly with Triumph projects and Restore projects, we have the resources in place to do the work to be competitive, or as competitive as we can be. Some of those dollars will be paid out of the receipts for the grants. There are some funds that are available through Triumph and Restore, particularly, that we can use to pay for those. Some of them we may ask you for a budget amendment. But we felt it was critical to get these participants in place, that as we move projects forward, we have the resources at our disposal and quickly at our disposal to move forward. Having said that, we will not be funding grant writers for private initiatives through Triumph or Restore or any others. We may make them available if that's who they need through whatever process they may be. But I don't think you will find a line item in the current year budget that says pay for grant writers for Restore or Triumph projects. But I can assure you, before any dollars are allocated or spent, we will bring the appropriate budget amendments back to you and explain to you why we think it's important that those actions take place.
Well, I would just suggest, I mean, the grants that you apply for go way beyond just Triumph and Restore Act funding, I presume. At least I think there's other state highway money and things like that that you may apply for grants for. And I would suggest you allocate some amount in the budget just so that you have it in there and you don't have to go looking elsewhere to reallocate funds from somewhere else in the budget when you do your budgeting, number one. And number two, I didn't see anything in any of the contracts that gave the companies that you're going to contract with. And I assume these are task order type contracts where you write a task.
That's correct.
It gives them any idea of how much is available to spend. My experience has always been with a task order. It's usually a task order for a certain amount of money that you then spend as the need arises, and you write the tasks to spend that amount of money. Maybe it's just a different way of budgeting, but I suggest you might consider that as a way to keep your books straight.
Yes, sir.
All right.
And I real quickly, I'm sorry, Larry gave me a long answer. Do you have any metrics for measurement of how these grant writers perform in their return on investment? Do you
Yes, sir.
keep track of how much you get?
Money we get?
Pardon?
How much money in a grant we get?
Do you know how that turned out last year as to how much you spent for grant writers versus how much you received in grants?
No, sir, no.
Okay, so you have a metric, you just haven't been using it so far, is that?
That's correct.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
We got it, Bill.
You're good. I was just going to highlight Mr. Jones's comments, that he was 100% correct. One of the comments that Commissioner Commander and Bob actually spoke of earlier, there is an estimated $200,000 that's in the planning side of Pot 1 under the Restore side, and part of one of the tasks that we'll do, the first chore that the administrator gave us, make sure we could not do this internally with our skill sets either or time. So we will be going after those dollars as part of it. That will be particular to certain projects that are related to Restore. Triumph, because of the changes that occurred kind of on a very fluid basis, there's not a reimbursement mechanism on that side, such as using the regional economic modeling tools and things, but I'll certainly keep Mr. Brook advised.
All right, thank you. Ms. Bowman?
Coy Bowman, B-O-W-M-A-N. So, nothing you do makes sense. You have a code that basically gives you permission to not follow the rules. The system of fines is just a way of getting paid for trees without actually doing the timbering and timbering taxes on them. If these people are experiencing water in their yard because they built their house too close to a lake, then it's not the lake's fault. They shouldn't have built that close to it. You are not allowed to raise your property higher than your neighbor's property. It is impossible for there to have been red dirt originally on that parcel he was talking about, because God did not put any red dirt or sand on this island. That red dirt had to have been brought in by the previous owner. Here's the problem also with the trees, is that you actually give people permits to cut them all down, like clear cutting. That's extremely dangerous because then there's no roots left for the land to sit on, and that's what we all stand on. D.R. Horton is actually an energy company. They clear cut land, and then they suck all the nutrients out of the land. The reason they want to build houses all over it and pour concrete all over it is because they know that nothing will ever grow there again now that all of the nutrients and the shale and sediment down under the ground have been removed. That's what makes sense as to why there's so much ridiculous building going on that has no proper filtration. I mean, drainage, there's no water access to them, and you can't handle the sewerage that comes off the island already. So everything you do doesn't make sense. You get a rule from the state of Florida, and then you just rewrite it or revise it so that it doesn't apply to you. And then the state of Florida goes, oh, well, we don't know what they're doing. And then you say you don't know what the state of Florida is doing because they gave us permission to change the rules they made for us. And then when you both get stuck in a way you can't answer, you both just blame St. Joe. So it doesn't make any sense, your set of rules that you make, because your rules basically give people permission to spend money to break them. Like when you fine somebody for damaging a sand dune, you just take the money. You don't make them rebuild the sand dune. When they cut down trees without a permit, you don't make them replant trees. You just take the money. So basically your system of fines is just a way to take money for allowing people to do what they're not supposed to do. What does make sense is that you're an energy company that's just interested in the solid gold of the ground by stripping everything out of it and then putting houses on there that you know will sink, that will bankrupt all of the insurance companies, and then you're going to go cry to the federal government for federal money.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Come on in there.
Randy Gardner. I'd like to make a few comments, if I may, concerning tree ordinance. I have been fortunate in many ways in my career to work in, I just counted on while I was sitting waiting to speak, which was not the primary reason I was here. I've worked in 12 or more counties in Florida, and in that capacity as a developer builder. And Walton County is, and my point is, we should be very careful as we go forward with the tree ordinance, especially in Walton County. Walton County is one of the 12 that I remember working in and dealing with in some of them, tree ordinances. But Walton County is already one of the highest preservation area I've ever worked in. So much of the land is owned by the state. Any project pretty much that I've done in various parts of Walton County already have a tremendous amount of tree preservation. I'm working on a project right now that's on 30A that has so much specimen of trees and vegetation that are protected that we're actually changing our land use back to conservation residential because it's already going to be under preservation based on the tree specimens. And for development, any developer, as all of you know on the board, when you submit for a subdivision, you are required to leave a certain amount of open space. You can't take all the trees down. You can't remove all the grass. There's a formula based on the lot can only have, we call it a footprint. The building can only take up a certain amount of the lot. And hard space, meaning asphalt, concrete, and so on, can only take up so much of the lot. The balance is going to be left in open space, green space. Under some conditions, especially, let's say, a shopping center or unique project requires a certain amount of tree removal based on the operation of the business, but it's compensated by money that goes back to the county to be used for we'll call for other preservation purposes. Closing is to say be very careful, in my opinion, relative to a tree ordinance in Walton County. I always believe that the developers have good intents, and there needs to be some form of review, but it already takes place through the planning department. Anything that goes forward should be slowly with a tremendous amount of public input so that it's not that we're going to burden anybody, it's we're going to have undue and unnecessary regulation over and above what we already have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Real quick comment. How many meetings have we had, public meetings regarding the trees? 2, 3? Kristen, is she here? Lee, have you been in any of the meetings for how many? 2, 3? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. No further public comments and close public comment section. We're going to take about a 15-minute break, so we'll reconvene at 10 minutes to 6. Seal.
She was finishing up.
I will. Back to order, please. All right, we're moving into the planning quasi-judicial items. Ms. Sidney?
Yes. Anyone who anticipates testifying on any of the items left on the agenda, if you would stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will provide to this board will be the truth? Okay. When you come forward, if you would, just state your name and state that you've been sworn in. Have any of the commissioners had any ex parte communications on any of these items?
Yes.
Okay. Has everyone, I guess, filled out their forms and provided them to the clerk?
We'll provide them.
Okay. Would any of those ex parte communications impact your impartiality or decision-making on these cases?
No.
All right, seeing no, Mr. Carpenter?
Okay.
Thank you.
Back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item on our quasi-judicial agenda tonight is number 44, the Mercy Multiplied Women's Center. This is a request to approve by final order. It's been reviewed by Bob Baranti. It's a major development order application submitted by Jenkins Engineering on behalf of Mercy Multiplied, requesting approval to develop a 22-room women's center and associated infrastructure improvements on approximately 11.6 acres with the future land use of village mixed use. The project's located at 24735 U.S. Highway 331 South and identified by the parcel numbers in your package. The applicant is here and is prepared to present their case.
Okay, two questions, Mac.
Yes, sir.
One, you want the staff report entered into the record?
Yes, sir, I'd like for that.
So moved. And two, I thought we were going to take the one that was going to be postponed first.
we can certainly do that. And I
Let's
did
go ahead
ask
and
for
get that one out of the way, and that way, if there's
Okay.
anybody here for it, we'll go ahead and it'll be released.
We do have one item that we are requesting to remove from the agenda. That is item number 51, the Bay Shore Townhomes. This project has actually been withdrawn by the applicant. They've chosen to do 2 single-family homes instead of 3 townhomes on this parcel. However, because it was previously advertised when we got the withdrawal request, we had to continue it on the agenda tonight.
All right, we need a motion to, in that regard.
Second?
Have a motion, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, now we.
Thank you, sir. The applicant's ready to present their case.
Come on forward, applicant.
Good evening, I'm Scott Jenkins with Jenkins Engineering. I'm here representing the Mercy Multiplied project. As you can see, this project is actually really exciting. We're happy to be involved with it. This is actually about a stone's throw from here. It's on the other side of 331, just north of the site here. I'll just run through the site plan really quickly. Give you some ideas. This is about 11 acres. The site itself is situated on the front quadrant here. 22-room women's center for women in transition, basically here. We have a wet pond in the back where we do treat and stormwater in this area. It's pretty straightforward site. As you can see here, this is kind of the architecture. The project has been through Planning Commission and Design Review Board and been approved by both. We have the architect here tonight. If you have any questions for him, we also have representatives of the foundation. It is a not-for-profit. They do all this based on donations. I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys may have about this.
You have any questions for Scott?
Are there going to be any businesses in the front? I know at one time the project was considering some businesses for the ladies to work in, or?
Nothing at this time. It's basically just the facility itself.
Okay, any others? Okay, is there any public comments? Ms. Bowman?
Coy Bowman, B-O-W-N-A-N. Yes, I've been sworn. Okay, the first thing that doesn't make sense about this is that these people say that they want to help people. Okay, they spent nearly $3 million for this piece of land, and it's going to cost at least $1 million to build this building. So that's $4 million we're talking that's supposed to go to help battered women in transition out of jail, or drug addicts. So, like, they could have bought a much less expensive, already built building somewhere and spent the other $3 million on actually helping the women. So I think it's kind of a crock that these people say that they want to help people, and they want to buy some of the most expensive real estate in absolutely the wrong place in the world, when that money could be much better utilized to help these women at a much less expensive real estate location. Okay, the second thing that is a joke about it is that they say that they're a faith-based nonprofit organization. Well, I have faith in God, so can I not pay my taxes when I buy a piece of land? Because this is what they're doing, and this is why St. Joe sells all their land to churches and nonprofits, is because if the land goes to the federal government, then they would find out that they're not supposed to be building on it in the first place. Secondly, this is part of the forest. The entrance sign was moved some years ago, maybe 10 years ago. The entrance to Sanctuary by the Sea is actually the original entrance to the state park there, but it was moved in order to build on land where you're not supposed to build. Then also, you're talking about buying one of these pieces of land across the street from this place to put in the tourist development center. So now, one of my original conflicts with this is that we're supposed to be a vacation town where people come to relax and forget about their troubles. And now you want to put it right in their face so that when they stop at the tourist place, that there's this building across the street that's got a bunch of battered, abused, and drug addict women in it. So, like, when you come on vacation, don't forget that there's a bunch of pain and suffering in the world. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. So, like, absolutely nothing about this makes sense. Their desire to help people could be utilized in much better ways, so that doesn't make sense. Where you want to put it doesn't make sense, and absolutely nothing about it makes sense. So that's what I have to say.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? All right, right, seeing none. Scott, you want any rebuttal, or are you good with what's been said?
The only thing that I would say is that the property actually was donated, that's correct. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry, property.
Okay. All right. What's the board's wishes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Welcome to Walden County, Nancy. She has a renowned big ministry, and we're just so blessed to have her and this group come in. We're just tickled to death. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next item on our agenda is number 2, the Topsail Essentially Built Out Agreement. This is a request to approve by agreement of the Essentially Built Out Agreement. Project's been reviewed by Renee Bradley. It's a major development order application submitted by Lino Maldonado as agent for and on behalf of the Topsail Group, requesting approval of an agreement between Walton County, the Florida DEO, the applicant, and owners of property within the Topsail DRI, which are identified in the agreement. Topsail DRI is approximately 52 acres within the Coastal Center Future Land Use category. This application does not request approval of any physical development. Mr. Jesse Rigby is here to represent the applicant. There have been some changes in state law this past week related to DRIs, and Jesse can further describe that along with his case.
Okay. Mr. Rigby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'm Jesse Rigby from the Clark Partington Law Firm, and with me tonight is Mr. Lino Maldonado from Resort Quest and the Wyndham entities, and John Dow Jr., who represents one of the applicants, I&M Development. First of all, with respect to the record, I would like the staff report included in the record. Now, there have been some additional documents provided to you today that kind of has to deal with a change to the agreement resulting from the governor signing of a new statute last Friday afternoon. So I believe what we provided to the board today would have been the new agreement, the modified agreement, and also some information, an excerpt from the 167-page statute should have been provided. And
They have been provided along with a letter from the Berg Law Firm.
Okay.
They will accept them into the record.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Again, I represent all the parties that are named in the agreement with the exception of Mr. Dowd's client, which is I&M Development. And I'm going to take just a little bit of your time because it's a little confusing. This is probably a built-out agreement like this. You probably have not seen many of them. I know there has been at least one in the county prior to this. But this project began some time ago as a means to address what at the time was a statutory prohibition that existed until last Friday when the governor signed House Bill 1151, which made changes to the DRI statute. And what's important, and I provide a document, we can go over it in a minute, but the former statute in subsection 380.0615G included the following prohibition, which has governed you for a long time. That prohibition was a local government may not issue a permit for a development subsequent to the build-out date contained in the development order unless. And then there were a lot of provisions, and that unless was the essential built-out agreement. And that's where we started with this several months ago and had been through the Planning Commission. The development order that's referred there would be the DRI development order, which for Topsail, the last resolution, last development order was 2005-87. And I know you have that in the staff report. And admittedly, the build-out date for Topsail occurred several years ago. So until last Friday, you were prohibited from issuing any development permits or development orders for any remaining vacant property in Topsail, even if those property owners had development rights. And again, the unless provision, and there are several pages of it that were deleted, was the essential build-out agreement. And there was a reason for that. Because if you think about it a moment,
You've got undeveloped vacant property that has development rights, and the statute says after the build-out date, you cannot, as the county, issue a permit. And that naturally raises this whole issue of a taking of private property without just compensation. And so the state then built in the essential built-out agreement, which would be an agreement between the county, the remaining developers, and DEO. And so that's where we were until last Friday. Last Friday, that statute, among other things, and for what's important tonight, is it eliminated that prohibition. So where Mr. Dowd's client last Friday could not have gotten a development order for a vacant property that has entitlement to 15 residential units, today he theoretically can, because the prohibition has been removed from the statute. And so entering into the essential build-out agreement eliminated any taking of private property. That's kind of the underlying purpose when you really look at it. And so we moved through this process, went to the Planning Commission. Prior to that, of course, it had been through DEO. We had DEO's blessing. They had certain language they wanted in it to meet with the statutory requirements. County staff was on board to recommend approval. It went to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission last month recommended approval with one caveat. At the Topsail Master Association request, they asked for a town hall meeting, and the Planning Commission said the caveat on their approval is that we hold a town hall meeting. That was held on March the 24th with the Topsail Master Association Board. It was a noticed meeting, and I don't know the exact number. Let's say 50 homeowners were there also, and of course they had a right to be there. It was a very, I think, productive meeting for all concerned. Unbeknown to me, and I suspect anybody else in this room today, a day or two later, the legislature passed House Bill 1151. Didn't hear anything until I believe it was Monday morning, and your county staff received a note from DEO that says, by the way, we no longer have any authority to sign the agreement. And we scurried around, got the statute, and we're here tonight. We still believe the agreement before you is good for everybody concerned. What it does, it takes a snapshot in time, and it says these for an old DRI, first approved in 1982, that's essentially built out. That here's a snapshot in time of what is left there, the vacant parcels that have not been built on, and it gives certainty going forward into the future as to how those properties can be developed. And the DRI itself is ready to be closed out. There's no question there, but there are vacant properties. What I want to do is take just a moment and tell you what development remains. Essentially, with residential development, and I know you have a drawing, a master plan, parcel 621, which is just inside the gate, it has an existing development order issued by the county for, I believe it's 78 single bedroom units, because the entitlement there is 115 single bedroom units. Parcel 622, which is adjacent to the Topsail Club, about a half acre, it has entitlement to 10 residential units. In 2006, it had a development order that got caught up and was ready to be built, frankly, got caught up in the economic downturn. So we know 10 units can go on there. Parcel 626 is Mr. Dowd's client, and it has entitlement to 15 units. It also had an issued development order in the 2006 timeframe that the owner at that time, the prior owner, abandoned because of the economic downturn when nothing was being built. And then there is about 9,500, I believe it's 9,541, I may be off, it's listed in detail in the agreement, square feet of commercial, and I really call that non-residential square footage, entitlements on the two parcels that flank the entrance road down on 98. One has the sales center, the other has a two-story office building. Behind that is the Ocean Club. Those are the two commercial parcels. They have 9,594 square feet of space there. All this agreement does is recognize those entitlements and says that's how they can be used going forward. One of the concerns raised by the Master Association was the earlier agreement had ability to transfer some of the residential units. That has been eliminated. We pulled that out completely. That was one of their concerns at the Master Association. So nobody is moving residential units around at all. We still do request, though, approval to allow the entities that own those parcels on 98 to move that that non-residential square footage, and I'm going to ask Mr. Maldonado to come up and tell you why. He can do a much better job of that than I can. The other important thing to recognize here is the only thing that's vested in Topsail today is traffic concurrency and the actual density and intensity. That's it. Anybody coming forward with a development order will have to still meet all the county's requirements, land development requirements, parking, landscaping, water, sewer, stormwater. All of those will be evaluated, and they will either be evaluated by staff as a minor development order if they qualify, or by you if it's a major development order. And I know the association has raised concern about stormwater. The time to address those issues is when plans come before you, and the engineers have to certify and show that they can meet all the stormwater requirements. That's not for tonight. In summary, this document puts into an agreement format that can be enforced by everybody what essentially could have been done under the essential build-out agreement. But I think it's still important. That document has a good history, and it gives clarity to everybody, frankly, from now on, as to the very limited additional development, actual construction that can be done within Topsail. And Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to call Mr. Maldonado up and explain why we are asking to move the non-residential entitlements.
Okay, I got one quick question.
Yes, sir.
According to what I have in here, I show remaining 11,494 of commercial.
It is, and let me explain where that is.
Okay.
There are 1,900 square feet of commercial space at the Tides that was not built. Okay? This is not addressing that issue. I don't know where you would put 1,900 square feet at Tides. There's a provision in here that preserves those rights to them, doesn't touch them. They are not a party to this agreement.
All right.
There are also 2 residential units at Tides. Not sure who owns them. There's nothing in the agreement. They may be owned by Mr. Flotz, who actually developed Tides. There are also 12 units in Captiva. And if you know the project, Captiva is fully built out. There is no room. But they have 12 units that they didn't use. So from a practical point of view, those are just not developable. This does not move those around, doesn't give them to anybody else. And what's at the Tides and what's at Captiva, that is clearly not owned by any of my clients or Mr. Dowd's. And again, just to clarity, all of the entities, other than Mr. Dowd's client, and the owner of parcel 621, a company called C&E Coastal, everybody else is actually a Wyndham entity or a subsidiary. Abbott and Andrews Realty, the Topsail Group, which is the applicant, and the club. They're all Wyndham entities.
Okay. Sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lino Maldonado, and I have been sworn in as
Spell your
well.
last name for me.
Maldonado, or some close rendition would be fine. Really, from our perspective, we're not in the development business. We have no plans to really build anything residential on any of these parcels. We are in the brokerage business, so we do have interest in future opportunities to buy and sell real estate, and be the broker for those transactions. Our interest really from an amenities perspective, or moving that commercial square footage around, is that Topsail's getting old. The amenities are old. It's built back in the '82. We have spent between $450,000 and upwards of $2.5 million per year on amenities and assets that we own within the gates for the really the enjoyment of the owners and guests of the project itself. We'd like to continue that investment into those amenities. This unused commercial square footage and moving that into the club entity on those two parcels allows us to re-engineer how those structures are currently done today. One example would be that we just completely redid the fitness center floor at the property. Couldn't really do much other than put on a new floor, brand new equipment, and repaint the walls. At some point, we'd like to say, gosh, we need to modernize this entire asset and expand the fitness center. Maybe do something greater than the square footage or layout or design would allow us to do today. And that's really, from our perspective, what this movement of unused commercial square footage will allow us to do, is just to rethink those assets and re-engineer them in a way that can bring greater use and enjoyment of owners and guests of the resort. That project is one of our single largest owned assets for the region that I'm responsible for, and so everything that we do is going to be in conjunction with the best and highest use for all of those parties involved within that project. We are also the association manager for 5 of the 7 associations there, so we want to make sure that we carefully and correctly represent all interested parties within the project. But our primary goal is to build the right things that guests and owners of that project can enjoy. So happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, any questions? Seeing none at this time. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Rigna, do you have any follow-up?
Not at this time.
Okay. Is there anybody else wish to speak? Yes, sir, come forward.
My name is Brandon Berg, B-U-R-G, and I represent the Topsail Master Association, and I've been sworn in. And I believe y'all been presented with a copy of our letter that we sent to you guys through Ms. Bradley on Monday. Just like Mr. Rigby said and what Mr. Maldonado said, as far as this is a confusing issue and this is a complicated issue. And just like what Mr. Maldonado said, is their organization represents 5 of the 7 associations that are out there, which are concerned parties. That's the problem that we're having, is that we have a very complicated issue that we haven't had adequately time to review and proffer an opinion to you guys. We have been doing everything we can within Florida law and our governing documents and just the nature of being a homeowners association to address this and not hold up this process. So today I'm asking you to table this until the May 8th meeting. Not yes or no, just give us some time to organize our thoughts, come to you, because right now we have 3 different positions amongst our board to date. It's oppose this, support it, or take no position at all. Because the nature of our homeowners association and that the members of the homeowners association are the sub-associations, the condominiums, and then beneath them are the owners. So we have constituents just like you guys do that we're trying to answer to and act in their best interests. We only learned of this essentially built out agreement when the public notice was provided. That was the end of February. We had our annual meeting that happened to be scheduled for March 3rd. We appeared there, we heard some concerns from owners, and at that point we had very little context to what was going on. I've worked with Mr. Dowd and Mr. Rigby, who, despite all this, have been nothing but professional in dealing with this. We appeared at the Planning Commission meeting. We asked for them to table this, and they tabled it, or excuse me, they approved it, or they recommended approval condition upon having our town hall meeting, which we promptly scheduled 2 weeks later. It was very well attended. I actually written down that we had 50 people there as well, so I guess me and Mr. Rigby are on the same page with how many people were there. Some very good comments. It was very productive, but the board got some very pointed questions from the owners saying, go look at these things, go analyze these issues, come back to us with some thoughts. They came to me, they asked me to provide a memorandum on that. We did that the next week. Now, last week, there was some pretty passionate email discussions amongst the board on what do we want to do about this? Is this something we need to be involved with? I was ready to look past the law that prohibits email voting for boards. HOAs cannot vote by emails in the statute. But I was going to say, if there's consensus amongst the board, then we can ratify it at a later meeting. There wasn't. There was some passionate discussion, we need to oppose this at all costs. There was some discussion, this is fine, this is already done. There were some other folks saying we shouldn't be spending Master Association money on this. So I would appreciate the opportunity for us to be able to call a meeting, take into consideration the changes that we were just presented with this morning. Like what Mr. Rigby said, the law changed between our town hall meeting and today. And I don't know how much time counsel for the county has had to look at this revision and staff. I was provided with it at 11:50 this morning. Now, my cursory glance that's happened at a Starbucks down the road at Grand Boulevard and sitting in the back of the meeting is it appears okay. I can't look at you with a straight face and say I see anything that jumps out that says this is bad. This is a complicated agreement. I can tell you that the move towards prohibiting the reallocation of the density is definitely a step in the right direction. That was a very major concern of the owners there, is the reallocation and moving of density from 621 to 626 and 622. So I have every intention that we try to work something out. The association would like to schedule a meeting here in the next week or two, make a decision, decide what we're going to do, go reach out to Mr. Rigby and Mr. Dowd, try to have an agreement, just like I tell my clients who are appearing in front of a judge. No offense, but I don't want to leave it up to you guys. I would prefer to come to you with an agreement that says, okay, we're all on the same page, this is what we want to do, or come to you with an educated and informed opinion, look, we're opposed to this for X, Y, and Z reasons. So just like we've said, the DRI expired. The DRI was issued in 1982. These things haven't been built for 36 years. I'm hoping they can wait one more month. Any
Okay.
questions?
Mr. Regan, you have any questions for
One
Mr. Byrd?
quick
Go ahead.
question. Just for my own curiosity, you said you can't do an HOA by email.
Yes, sir.
Could you do it by text messaging? Does that fall under the same thing? That's just strictly under, for
Don't give my clients any ideas, sir. No, I would say no. It needs to be at a
That's
meeting. Now,
what I
what we
was
can do,
thinking.
we can do a conference call, but we're not all in town. It's just like the same constraints that you guys have as a county. We have meeting requirements, notice requirements. We have constituents that we have to answer to. I will put it on the association that if we don't have an answer to you by May 8th, that's on us. But for us to we're not a body that's set up legislatively to make speedy decisions. And I can tell you in good faith, we've been moving as fast as reasonably possible.
Okay. Mr. Regan, do you have any follow-up question for him? Mr. Byrd?
Just a couple of comments. I would disagree that.
Are you going to ask him any questions?
No,
or is-
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No,
Okay,
no,
go ahead,
I'm
Mr.
sorry,
Byrd.
I'm sorry.
No, you're all right, Mr. Regan. I guess we
I'm done,
have.
then I'm done.
Okay.
All right, thank you guys.
Go ahead, sir.
I apologize.
That's all right.
I'm going to disagree a little bit, Mr. Berg. It's not a particularly complicated issue. It looks complicated until you look at a couple of very simple provisions in the statute. Again, 621 has the most density. It has a development order. It has already been approved by the county. All they have to do is come in with architectural plans and pull their building permits. So that's past this point. It's recognizing that right that's there. There are only 25 units at issue here that generate traffic. 10 in parcel 622 and 15 in parcel 626. That traffic is vested. It's always been considered by the county to be vested in the DRI, and that is the result that this DRI, if you look, was downsized. It started out, I believe, 140,000 square feet of commercial, 900 residential, and 400 hotel. You're now at a total build-out at 47, not 140, commercial, 600 and so residential rather than 900, and no hotel. All right, so it was downsized, and that's why the traffic is still vested there. So only 25 units are going to generate traffic. Only 2 developments are going to address stormwater that has not already been addressed. 621 has already been addressed and approved. The redevelopment of the club is on a set piece of land, and it is there looking at what, and again, the club serves the residents and guests at the resort. That's what it serves. It doesn't generate new traffic. The people are already there. They're staying in the condos and then using the club for what it's there for recreational tennis courts, etc. So I don't think it is complicated. Stormwater is not to be addressed. There may be issues that the association wants to raise with stormwater. If so, the time is when a development order comes to you and comes to the county for review. And that is not being waived in this. The other point is, and I think it's important, to recognize those 2 parcels the commercial, that flank, 608A and 608B. We put a condition in here that if that commercial square footage is moved to the club, what happens under this agreement? If they now redevelop, and at some point they will be, because they're 25 to 30 years old, those parcels will be redeveloped at some point in time. They're still part of Topsail. They still contribute to the maintenance, and they have a fee they have to pay under the declaration. But any development that occurs on those parcels under this agreement will be under the comp plan, any redevelopment, just like any other parcel along 98 that gets redeveloped. You'll see that in the agreement. They're coming out of any protection or any vesting, even for traffic. So if they were enlarged with a bigger building under your coastal center plan and it produces more traffic, then they're going to have to deal with that through your proportional fair share of whatever you have that's applicable at that point in time. So I don't think it's complicated. I think it's fairly straightforward. It simply does take a snapshot and recognize what's there today. It does not increase any entitlements. So we would ask that you deny or reject the request for a continuance. I think there has been time. And again, it's not closing off the opportunity for the association or any of its sub-associations or any individuals to come here and address issues that they think might exist in the future with development and stormwater. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir, in the back.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Spiker, S-P-E-I-C-H-E-R, and I've been sworn in. I am the president of the Topsail Master Association, and I stand before you. I represent approximately 540 property owners within that DRI. As you heard the association attorney present our case, right now we're just respectfully requesting 30 more days to understand this. And in finding out today, late this morning, that the Florida statute changed, and I heard Mr. Rigby explain how that happened and understood why this essentially built-out agreement was needed at the expiration of the DRI. If in fact the law did change and that agreement is not needed, here we are hours later trying to consider this agreement. So I would like to bring in the members of our association board with our attorney, fully understand how the Florida statute changed, what's required and what's not. And at this time, I'm truly not opposing it on behalf of the association. Again, just asking for 30 more days so our owners can meet and discuss what's going to happen at Topsail.
Okay. Mr. Rignan, any questions for this gentleman? Any questions for him?
I have no addition.
Okay.
I think the issue has been laid out for you, sir.
All right. Anyone else? Ms. Bowman.
Coy Bowman. Okay, so what doesn't make sense about this is that in 1992, Topsail gave this to a declaration of foreclosure, where they handed it off to a foreclosure mitigator guy or whatever, who then sold it for $4 million to some guys named Topman, who then sold it back to Topsail for just $1 million. So there's something funny going on here, which is a part of how St. Joe converts land illegally by declaring bankruptcy, and then it goes to a bank or a mortgager who somehow filters it through the Florida court system and then just gives it right back to them. Topsail is St. Joe. This land is part of the Atlantic Pensacola Railroad deed. It was supposed to be designated as public land. This is a prime example of how public land has been stolen and converted into private property by the monster of St. Joe. All you have to do is go to Topsail's website and scan down to the bottom. There's a little circle that says subsidiary of St. Joe.
speak to the issue and quit bringing in St. Joe and all this other stuff from
Well, Topsail
hundreds of
is
years
St.
ago.
Joe, so it doesn't matter if it was hundreds of years ago. The fact is that it's the rules. You can't build on this land the way you're building on it.
Okay.
And to say that something's been through planning
Understood.
and the other department.
Wrap it up.
Just because you say that something's been through the planning department and then it's been through technical review, that doesn't mean anything because they're not actually allowed to express their opinions or viewpoints. Basically, there's a piece of paper in front of them that says, does it match all of these criteria? And they have to say yes, whether they agree with it or not. But that criteria that's been laid down by you and your faulty building laws is
Okay, Ms.
wrong
Bowman,
and not the way
have
you're
a seat,
supposed to do
please.
it.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Okay, as I understand, what we're here today to do is just to determine the final build-out numbers, both for commercial and residential. And as far as any development on these sites, if there is any, it's still got to come through the normal process of planning and planning commission. So open it up to the commissioners for any questions.
Based on the statute that has just changed, what kind of changes are, I don't feel like they've had enough time to review this statute that has just changed for 500 homeowners in a DRI that may or may not change their lives for good. I mean, this statute has just been approved?
It's just signed by the governor.
Just got signed.
It only did is take DEO out of the mix. They're no longer involved in it. Is that correct, Mr. Rigdon? Is that how you interpret it?
There was only one provision that dealt with this build-out. There are other provisions, I mean, that have nothing to do here. Notice of proposed change, all of that, which has nothing to do with this issue. But that's correct. So I think I've provided you the only portion that does deal with it. That new provision is now sub 4 that I provided you with the handout. There are a couple of provisions in there concerning recording of notices and all. The document meets those for recording. That's basic, and there are some other limitations that have no applicability here that limits the county and going back and taking away something that had been given in the past. But I think I can say with assurance that the provision I gave you is the only one that's relevant to this issue. There will be lots of other issues that come up in the future with somebody else, I'm sure.
And Commissioners, I reviewed the amendment to the essentially built-out agreement, and all Mr. Rigby did was remove any reference to the statute and remove DEO from the agreement.
Yeah,
I
I stripped everything that had to do with DEO. I stripped everything that had to do with the reference to the statutes that no longer exist. And we did remove, because of the request from the association, we removed any ability to move around residential units. We eliminated that because that was an issue raised at the town hall. So we took this opportunity and removed that. Okay. And I'm trying to think, I sent you a black line copy with all the changes. There were a couple other minor things, but those I believe would be the substance of the changes.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Any questions?
Mac, could you come?
I failed to, let me go ahead and make the announcement. I failed to mention it a minute ago. We're in the rebuttal stage for the applicant. There's no other public testimony to be taken. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
This, is there going to be a problem if this was delayed 30 days? Is that going to cause, and I'm going to ask you the same thing, Mr. Rigdon, so.
For the county, I don't believe there would be. The applicant may have a different response.
Okay.
Mr. Maldonado said 30 more days of legal bills.
Well, I thought you'd already done all the work.
No, I'm trying to retire, sir. I'm working hard at retiring. I do think it's important maybe to have Mr. Dowd come up. I would say the only development that is close is the intended development of parcel 626 that's owned by I&M Development, but I think Mr. Dowd can respond to that. I think he's basically ready, till we get this done, to go and submit a request for a development order for the 15 units.
All right, now,
On
he's
626.
is he part of the applicant?
He's one of the
One of them?
signatories, and Mr. Dowd represents I&M Development. They own parcel 626, and you'll see that on the drawing. And that has 15 residential units.
Okay.
And they've already been approved for those 15?
They were previously approved back in like 2006, and that development order has expired now. So they're not approved at this time. And my client certainly,
Identify yourself to the board.
John Dowd Jr., apologize, and I have been sworn in. My client is, does want to get going with his process, but I mean, I don't, I can't sit here and tell you 30 days. It makes a huge difference. When he does come, the thing that I think is important is when my client does come to develop his parcel or any of these other parcels, they have to apply and go through the development order process. They're going to have to prove, concurrency and everything required by the county statutes, other than as Mr. Rigby stated. So it's really not asking to do anything but to confirm what has already been approved long ago and has already been evaluated. We're just asking to have an agreement, which really just puts, and I think the staff may agree, it puts finality in this for the staff. They don't have to worry about it anymore. Nobody's going to come ask for anything else. This is it. And Mr. Rigby, I hate it that it came up the last minute with the change, but Mr. Rigby is, probably the most knowledgeable land use lawyer I know over the last 20 years that I've been practicing, and he spent the last 2 or 3 days working on making sure that he evaluated the change and the impact that it would have so that he could explain everything to you guys. We initially said, let's just continue this, we can figure it out, but with his, I couldn't have done it, but with his ability, he was able to kind of break it down and see that really it just removes some prohibitions and removes the DEO from the mix is all that really happened. And I think the county's worked really hard with us on this, spent a lot of time and a lot of money in the advertising, and we think this is just a good chance to put the development entitlements to bed. And then, like I said, everybody will have to come back to you again, and the association, who was great at our meeting. We've had really good communications and everything with each other. But like I said, they'll have that opportunity to come back and object and to any developments that are done in the future.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, what's the board's wishes?
I'd like a continuance for 30 days.
Okay, we've got a motion to continue for 30 days.
Or, excuse me, till the 8 May meeting.
Okay, May 8th. Hearing no second, dies for lack of second.
I make a move, motion to approve it.
Second.
Is there a
Second, yes.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. 4-1, sir. Next, Mac.
Thank you, Commissioners. That brings us to item number 3, the Point Washington F814C cell tower. This is a request to approve by final order. It's been reviewed by Renee Bradley. It's a major development order application submitted by Matthews and Jones on behalf of H. Buddy Robinson Jr. and Stanley W. Connolly Jr., requesting to construct a Southern Link cell tower on approximately 1/4 acre with the future land use of Village Center. Project is located approximately 800 feet north of US Highway 98 right-of-way, east of US 331. It's in the Peach Creek area. The applicant is here prepared to present their case, and we'd like to request a staff report be entered into the record.
So moved. Mr. Matthews.
Mr. Chairman, Commission, Dana Matthews. There's actually 3 co-applicants on this development order application that I represent. One is Value Concept. The owner of that company is Buddy Robinson. He's back there in the lime green shirt. Mr. Robinson is based out of Atlanta, but he's been building cell towers for over 30 years throughout the southeastern United States and has partnered with Southern Link and Gulf Power for many, many years. The other co-applicant is St. Joe Paper Company, who actually owns the land where the cell tower is to be located and have entered into a lease of the cell tower site and providing an easement to Emerald Coast Parkway as part of the lease agreement with Value Concepts. And then Southern Link, which is solely owned by Gulf Power, is also co-applicant and part of this project. And Clay Brogdon, our civil engineer, is with Gulf Power Southern Link and is here to answer any technical questions that you may have. Juliette Milam with Gulf Power could not be here tonight. She had something else that came up that she had to be at, and so she offers her apologies. She was here at the Planning Commission. This is to get started, I know the staff report, I want to make sure also part of the record is that as part of the, not just the staff report, but as part of the submittals of the applicant, there's a set of construction plans that are in the staff's files. I want to make sure that's also part of the evidence that's been submitted. There's also a site plan contained within that, and that there are they're called photo stimulations. I'll pass them around. I have a copy for the clerk. This shows you location of the tower and some real-life simulations on whether you can or cannot see them from different parts of Emerald Coast Parkway. Those I don't believe are in your package.
Dana, have you got a packet of stuff that you want entered into the record that you can present all at one time? And we'll go ahead and accept it in?
Yes, sir. This is a 300-foot cell tower. You've got location maps, I'm sure, in the package, and you know where it is. It's located approximately 919 feet off of Emerald Coast Parkway it's within 472-acre parcel that St. Joe has. It meets all the conditions of the Land Development Code. The Comprehensive Plan's conditional use permit is what's being sought pursuant to the land use category as part of the West Sector Plan. Went through technical review. I think there was one comment that we provide some additional information to the staff. It went through Planning Commission with the staff recommendation, unanimous approval from the Planning Commission. We've had no letters of opposition or any emails. We did have a private meeting that was requested from Lee Moore and Roger over at the, they're part of a different group that is not a county group, but one that had questions about the application. We met with them before the Planning Commission, and we believe that that we meet all the terms and conditions. I mean, all the individual departments within the county staff have signed off on this, from engineering to wetland review and what have you. So we're here to answer any questions. There's one thing mentioned to Ms. Bradley. There was in her package a proposed final order. There was a incorrect date at the top, and I knew that she was going to be fixing that. So we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from the board?
With the conditions of approval, I see one for South Walton Fire District.
Yes, ma'am. And their condition, I'm sorry.
15 feet.
Yeah, they wanted 15 feet. Actually, the roads are 16 feet. And the roads are maintained by St. Joe under the easement agreement, and the applicant, Value Concept, who is installing the tower, is responsible for maintaining the landscaping and the actual 100 by 100 foot fenced in area where the cell tower is at.
Okay. All right, Mr. Matthews, is there any public comment? Ms. Bowman.
Okay, so what's to stop this from becoming a development later when they tear the cell tower down? Like, I mean, other than all the other things that are wrong with this, that St. Joe doesn't really own it. I know you don't want to talk about St. Joe, but that is impossible when they have their name written all over all of these pieces of land. Like, the oldest document on this is from 1985 for $100, where they gave it from themselves to themselves. So now I would like to see some piece of paper that actually says that St. Joe owns this land, something that's accepted by the federal government, because you see, I know there isn't any. So, no, you can't put a cancer-causing cell tower anywhere on my land. Thank you.
All right, anybody else? We'll close the public comment section. Is there any rebuttal from the applicant?
There's one thing that I failed to mention, but probably the most important thing, and that is, this is a, if I may approach, this is a design that shows you what the current, if you understand, which I don't, or I've learned a lot over the last few months, that if it's in red, I'm a visual guy, that means you got good cell power coverage. If you got green, you don't have very good. You can see this site. This is what's been considered a hole in South Walton on telecommunication coverage. After the cell tower comes in, this is what ends up with. And therefore, the emergency responders that we work with from the sheriff's department to the fire department, and I mean, they are very excited. And I think also the general public will be.
Gary, Ms. Bowman, if you can't knock that off, you're gonna leave. Well, don't do neither one of them. If you're gonna do that, take it outside. Well, I'm gonna help you. Well, take it outside. All right. Dana, is them other site locations around there already in place, or is that proposed?
We had to go through and show a 5-mile, do a study on a 5-mile radius on any other cell towers to see whether or not that they.
You go outside, excuse me, you go outside until you get yourself in check, all right? Huh?
I'm come back for the other issue.
As long as you're quiet when you come back. I don't want to hear that's not my problem.
Go to the doctor.
Go to the doctor or whatever, and find out what's causing all that.
I know what's causing it, you are.
Yes, ma'am, I'm sure.
As part of our application process, we had to do a 5-mile study to be able to show that the other towers didn't have capability of actually providing the same type of coverage as this cell tower, and none of them do. And that was submitted by staff and reviewed.
Okay. All right, any other rebuttal you want to go over, Mr. Matthews?
Yes, sir.
You done?
I don't have any rebuttal, Mr. Chairman, but I have a comment. You know how wonderful this will be for our broadband initiative.
There's no doubt about it, because we sure get a lot of comments about, from people around there, that there is no cell coverage. And they work from home and there's nothing. Does anybody know which vendor may be putting a,
Southern Link.
is it just gonna be Southern Link? But would you sell space to another vendor?
4 extra collated, right, panels.
Identify yourself, please.
My name is Clay Brogdon, and I work
Okay.
for Southern Link. Yeah, the tower is being designed not only for the Southern Link equipment,
Right.
but also to accommodate all the other major wireless carriers, Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, and T-Mobile predominantly. And I think we've been approached by Sprint, so we know that they're interested as well, and our guess and hope is that the others would as well. But it is being designed to hold their stuff.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, what's the board's wishes?
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next 3 items on our agenda are plats or replats. The first is number 4, Alice Beach Lot 3, Block AC. This is a replat to move a lot line in an area that has previously been platted. We'd like to request a staff report be entered into the evidence. And this plat meets the requirements of the Comp Plan Land Development Code and Chapter 177.
So moved. All right.
Is here to answer any
You got anything you want to ask? All right.
Any questions?
Anybody got questions of the applicant? Is there any public comment concerning this?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, sir. The next item is number 5, Alice Beach Phase 2A, lots 5 and 6, plat. Request to approve by final plat. It's been submitted by Interlight Engineering on behalf of EBSCO Gulf Coast. They're requesting approval to plat 2 of the 7 lots approved by development order. future land use of traditional neighborhood development in the Alice Beach development. This application meets the requirements of the Comprehensive Plan, Land Development Code, the Development Order, and Chapter 177 Florida statutes. We'd like to request the staff report be entered into evidence.
So moved.
And the applicant is here to answer any questions you might have.
You have anything you want to add? Any questions of the applicant? Seeing none. Any public comment? Seeing none.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item, item number 6, the Alice Beach Block M plat. This has been reviewed by Tim Brown also. It's a plat application submitted by Interlight Engineering on behalf of EBSCO Gulf Coast Development, requesting approval to plat 14 single-family lots on approximately 2.64 acres with the future land use of traditional neighborhood development. This is located within the Alice Beach planned unit development. This application meets the requirements of the Comprehensive Plan, the Land Development Code, the Development Order, and Chapter 177 of Florida statutes. And I'd like to request the staff report be entered into evidence.
So moved.
And the applicant is here if you have any questions.
Any questions from the applicant or presentation? None. Any questions for the applicant? Any public comment? Seeing none.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners, and that brings us to our last item on our agenda tonight, number 7. This is New Bama Steel 2, a request to approve by final order. It's been reviewed by Tim Brown. This major development order application has been submitted by Choctaw Engineering on behalf of K5 Development LLC. They're requesting approval to develop a 7,500 square foot commercial warehouse and associated infrastructure on approximately 0.67 acres with the future land use of business park. The project's located on the south side of Serenova Road, north of US 98 East, and it's identified by the parcel number in your packet. This is within the South Walton Commerce Park, located immediately east of the new sports park and elementary school on the north side of Highway 98. We'd like to request a staff report be entered into the record, and the applicant is here to present their case.
Okay. Does the applicant wish to speak?
Mr. Chairman, I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions from the board? The only one I got, you a Bama fan? Oh. Okay, that's all right. All right.
Sorry, you lost the vote, Mr. Chairman.
All right, no public comment? Seeing none, what's the board's pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Is that it, Mac?
Motion to adjourn.
We're adjourned. That's all right. I didn't even notice. Oh, my God.